Business Continuity Management System. A Business Continuity Management System, or BCMS, can be implemented and maintained by an organization to develop business continuity applicable to the amount and types of impacts the organization may or may not accept following a disruption. The purpose of a BCMS is to help the entity prepare, maintain, and prioritize its core capabilities and functions, to manage its ability to continue to operate during disruptions. In achieving this, the entity would, from a business standpoint, support its strategic objectives, protect and enhance its reputation and credibility, and contribute to organizational resilience. From a financial viewpoint, reduce legal and financial exposure, and reduce the direct and indirect costs of disruptions. From an external interested party perspective, protect life, property, and the environment. Consider the expectations of interested parties, and provide confidence in the entity's ability to succeed. And finally, from an internal process point of view, improve its ability to remain effective during disruptions. Show proactive control of risks effectively and efficiently, and address operational susceptibilities. Business Continuity Cycle. The Plan, Do, Check, and Act, or PDCA cycle, is recommended for implementing, maintaining, and continually improving the effectiveness of the BCMS. Plan, or establish. The plan stage involves establishing business continuity policy, objectives, controls, processes, and procedures that are relevant to improving business continuity in order to deliver results that align with the entity's overall policies and objectives. The context of the entity could include the disaster management responsibilities and services of an entity, including during disaster operations. Resource capabilities, such as financial, time, people, processes, systems, and technologies. The political, legal, and regulatory environment under which the entity operates, including social and cultural aspects. The associated interdependencies, needs, and expectations of internal and external key stakeholders. Information and data systems, physical and/or electronic. Decision-making processes, as well as the processes and resources the entity requires to weather or recover rapidly from a disruption. Leadership and commitment. Leadership and commitment involves the commitment and willingness of management to allow for appropriate resources to manage the BCMS processes. Establishing business continuity policy and objectives. Senior management determining the roles, responsibilities, and authorities to align with the established BCMS. Promotion of continual improvement. Ensuring that the intended outcomes are achieved and ensuring that business continuity policy is communicated to all involved. Planning. Planning comprises actions to address risks and opportunities. Determining risks and opportunities includes risks identified within disaster management plans, ensures the BCMS will achieve its intended purpose, prevents negative outcomes, and facilitates continual improvement. Business continuity objectives that establish objectives that are in line with the overall objectives of the entity, including responsibilities and setting realistic targets, and clearly specify what will be done, the resources needed, who is responsible, completion dates, and result evaluation processes, and changes to the BCMS that should be carefully planned to ensure that the intended purpose of the change is fully investigated and understood, and could include consideration of the consequences of the proposed changes, including all anticipated and unintended consequences of the change, ensuring the integrity of the BCMS is preserved, scheduled reviews, and/or ensuring continual improvement. Support. Resources. The entity should determine and ensure availability of the resources needed for the BCMS that will achieve its business continuity policy and objectives, meet the changing requirements of the organization, enable effective communication on the BCMS matters, both internally and externally, and provide for the ongoing operation and continual improvement of the BCMS. Resources could also include people, including people-related resources, facilities, information and communication technology, documentation management and control, communication, and finance and funding. It is important that all persons working in the business continuity environment for the entity to have competence in business continuity through education, experience, professional development, and training, and awareness of the applicable business continuity policy, their particular contribution to the effectiveness of business continuity, implications of not conforming with business continuity requirements, and their own role and responsibilities before, during, and after disruptions. Communication. The entity should identify all internal and external business continuity stakeholders and establish internal and external communication strategies, including what will be communicated, when communication will occur and with whom, and how communication will occur, as well as who will do the communicating. This should also include documentation and procedures for internal and external communication with partners and stakeholders, receiving, documenting, and responding to communications, ensuring communication methods are available during a disruption, and provision of media responses during a disaster or incident. Documented information. The entity should accurately record all information in the plan and record all information determined by the entity as being necessary for the effectiveness of the BCMS. Do or implement and operate. It is important for the entity to implement and maintain processes for analysing the business impact and assessing the risks of disruption. The do stage involves implementing and operationalising business continuity policy controls and procedures. Operational planning and control. Plan, implement, and control the required processes and implement the determined actions through establishment of criteria for the process, implementation of control based on the criteria established, and documentation of information necessary to ensure the processes have been carried out. Business Impact Analysis, or BIA, includes implementation and maintenance of methodical processes to analyse the business impact and assess any risks of disruption. Regular planned review of the business impact analysis and risk assessment. Review should also occur when there are significant internal changes to the organisation or changes to the environment in which the organisation operates. Entities can use a BIA process to define impact types and criteria in relation to the context of the organization's environment. Identify activities that support the business as usual of the entity. Assess how the impact types and criteria affect the activities over time. Identify timeframes for the maximum tolerable period of disruption before the disruption would be unacceptable. Set recovery time objectives, which are prioritized timeframes within the time identified to allow for the resumption of disrupted activities at a specified minimum acceptable capacity. Identify prioritized activities. Determine resources required to support the identified priority activities, and identify and verify the dependencies and interdependencies, including those with partners and suppliers, of prioritized activities. Risk assessment. A risk assessment process should be implemented and maintained by entities to identify the disruption risks to the organization's prioritized activities and to their necessary resources. Analyze and evaluate the identified risks, and identify the risks that require treatment. Business continuity strategies and solutions are to be selected in consideration of before, during, and after the disruption based on the outcome of a BIA and risk assessment. Could consist of one or more solutions. Should be based on how they either meet the requisites for the prioritized activities to continue and recover within identified timeframes and capacity, protect the organization's prioritized activities, decrease the likelihood or shorten the period of a disruption, reduce the impact of a disruption, and/or ensure availability of sufficient resources. Business continuity plans will enable the organisation to quickly activate agreed solutions due to disruption, provide guidance and information on response and recovery, could contain details of the appropriate actions for the continuation or recovery of prioritised activities within predetermined timeframes, and to monitor the impact of the disruption and the entity's response. Check, or monitor and review. The check stage comprises monitoring and reviewing performance against business continuity policy and objectives, reporting the results to management for review, and determining and authorising actions for improvement. Exercise program. The organisation shall exercise and test strategies and solutions to validate effectiveness that are consistent with its business continuity objectives, are based on appropriate scenarios that are well planned with clearly defined aims and objectives. Develop teamwork, competence, confidence, and knowledge for those who have roles to perform in relation to disruptions. Taken together over time, validate its business continuity strategies and solutions. Produce formalised post-exercise reports that contain outcomes, recommendations, and actions to implement improvements. Are reviewed within the context of promoting continual improvement, and are performed at planned intervals and when there are significant changes within the organisation or the context in which it operates. For example, inclusion of a disruption situation to a key business function as an inject when testing or exercising disaster management plans as per Section 55, Paragraph 2 and Section 59, Paragraph 2 of the Act. Monitor, measure, analyse and evaluate. The organisation needs to determine what requires monitoring and measurement. The methods for monitoring and measurement, analysis and evaluation, as applicable, to ensure valid results. When and who will be tasked to do the monitoring, and when to and who will analyse the monitoring. Act, or maintain and improve. The act stage involves maintaining and improving BCMS by taking corrective actions based on the results of management review and reappraising the scope of the BCMS and business continuity policy and objectives. Nonconformity and corrective action. The entity should react appropriately to nonconformity and take suitable actions for control and correction. That is, update policy, procedures and plans, including local and district disaster management plans. Address the consequences. Evaluate the actions required to remove the cause of the nonconformity to prevent reoccurrence. Implement actions, as well as review the effectiveness of actions taken. Continual improvement. Using qualitative and quantitative measures, the organisation can continually improve the suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness of the BCMS. This can be achieved through incorporating lessons management using the OIL process, which consists of observations, insights, lessons identified, and lessons learned. For further information on lessons management, please refer to the Queensland Disaster Management Lessons Management Framework.